Autonomy Project, a year-long experiment comparing education models. Every week you'll get a peek into our flow-demand lifestyle, a recap of our week in public school, and then you can watch us learn about business by building one together.
Welcome to a very sleepy week 3. Welcome to a very sleepy, I'm exhausted. We're still nocturnal. My son is still not staying up and going to bed in regular patterns. If his sleep was thrown off by an exciting video game or a trip to his dad's where they stay up all night, he would be able to come home and fix it within a few nights. And this pattern is persistent. He's awake during the evening and then the early morning, and then anytime live lessons or meetings might happen, he's asleep. When I'm getting all these non-stop calls, I'm not getting any indication that the school has any information about him. It's a whole new team. I think not a single person from last year, not a single person I advocated around. And, we're basically on our own. And I am centering my health in his health. Going deep into food prep, making sure I don't overeat, indulge in things that make me feel unwell, making sure dogs get walked, cat boxes get scooped, food is made and out on the counter for him to graze on whenever he gets hungry. The anxiety has led to a complete lack of appetite. And at this point, I'm just getting calories into him. I'm not even worried about him wasting the full meals I'm leaving out for him. I'm exhausted. And last night, I've been sleeping in the living room just in case he needs me. If I have to go to bed during the evenings when he's awake. And I've been sleeping sort of like in shifts. And last night, I only got 2 hours of sleep because he did need me. He fell down the stairs, he broke a glass. That's why I sleep in the living room. And luckily I was right there. I woke up, I cleaned up the glass, but by that point, my body was filled with anxiety. And so when I get up in the middle of the night like that, or he gets me up when he needs me, sometimes he's just really emotionally alone, and he wakes me up and he needs me. So then I won't sleep. And I usually, instead of fighting and getting angry or getting inside my head, I'll just wake up and I'll do my chores and clean then. So at least when it does settle down again, I can rest and I don't have a filthy house. But that's how I'm living, which is just like incredible. I haven't seen behavior like this since last spring. I didn't put the connection between this and school. I thought we moved. He's got a lot of stuff going on with friends, with his dad. I just didn't realize it was school. So I'm sort of still in this shock of like, we're not going back. I don't want to go back. I literally can't. I was sick. It made me very sick physically with my nervous system disorder last year. So right now I'm just trying to figure out what mole to whack first, because everything's popping up all at once and I'm trying to stabilize my child so that he can get something turned in. So PDA isn't defiant, and it's not about you. It's about having a neurotype, a body and a mind. Neuro. It's not just how you think. Your neurology is located throughout your entire body. Everywhere you can feel is like these super common in autism. In fact, up to 86% of us will experience at least one of them daily. With us in the PDA profile, it's just the demands of sleep alone and the sleep routine and the demands to get more sleep so that you can be focused for whatever demands are waiting for you in the morning. Can you get like a little sense of the anxiety that can show up when it's time to go to bed? Obviously, to me, this delayed sleep phase disorder popping up when school came back isn't an accident. But I'm not quite sure how to communicate with people who aren't actually autistic. how the regular demands of school is seen as healthy, normal. In fact, what they see as goals or milestones are actually nowhere on my radar, and in fact might be red flags for me. I just think, I feel like I should have gotten the hint that we don't belong there, and they just can't. It's not their fault, but the system is designed to do the opposite of what I'm asking it to, and so that's why it's always seemed so frustrating for everyone involved, and that's why it'll never stop being triggering, because it's fundamentally at odds with the function of what I'm asking it to do. And so it's a bit freeing to know, but also I'm prepping for an IEP meeting, and I'm not quite sure what to say, how I need to say it, and I'm not quite sure what they can do for me, honestly, within the confines of their system. So it's been a long week. We need some rest. Hopefully week 4 will get a little better. Let's take a look at the nuts and bolts of my parent diary for the week. One final thought for this week. Attempting to plan my son's birthday with his father, I used to self-blame and think I was ungrateful, and I was the problem per se. But now I'm sort of, and then I feel that I moved to a place where I felt that he was the problem because I needed support for my autism, right? Which is, it would be nice to have support, but I've totally morphed into the final realm of self-esteem where I realize I need support for my autism, and I've taken responsibility for that. What he can't provide me is he can't provide himself with support. And so he turns that around and gaslights me into thinking I'm a problem for needing support, and his neurodivergent traits are charming, and I am a wet blanket because of mine. When in reality, we just have opposite needs. He doesn't have the executive function to give me what I need. So it's not willful, although it may be a trauma response at this point where there's a bit of resistance there and he panics into anger, right? And he can't give me what I need, but in the core of it is that he can't. So, working with this theme of accepting reality, let's examine our public school diary for the week. So, working with this theme of accepting reality, let's examine our public school diary for the week. So, working with this theme of accepting reality, let's examine our public school diary for the week. So, working with this theme of accepting reality, let's examine our public school diary for the week. So, working with this theme of accepting reality, let's examine our public. So yeah, what I did was when I was in a really good place and had a lot of free time to meditate that day, I reached out through chat. There's almost nothing to say this week. It became apparent through the constant phone communication by each teacher that not only had none of his teachers received my son's IEP, or if they hadn't looked over it, and his case manager was completely unaware of who I was or he was or any of his individual needs. Now, let me just back it up here. I am the most involved advocate for my son. I had a lawyer. I have a lawyer, right? I speak passionately at every IEP meeting. I have made careful requests, especially around the wording in the IEP. And I pour 100% into scribing and being an aid for my son. This teacher clearly has no idea who my son is, and I don't think they're even aware that he attends asynchronously. So I haven't moved my internal boundaries around the means by which I'll communicate because I'm aware that these individuals are not intentionally meaning to harm me, and I don't want to be emotional when I end up communicating with them. So I'm trying to set myself up for success and for the most efficient way to interact and the least harmful to my son's existing discomfort. So what I received in my inbox was messages that I had missed, a meeting the teacher scheduled during my recording time. I hadn't indicated. I have a scheduling link I send out. So I was like a little taken aback and weirded out. Like, how do you just that's why I think at first I was like, who just does that? Like, it made me put me in a position to feel irresponsible when, like, who just schedules someone without communicating to them? And then I realized this poor person is not even aware he has these issues or attends asynchronously. I bet they think he's attending live lessons and we have a normal school day and a de facto be available. And so, Grace. And then at that point, I wanted to clarify a little bit who I was better. And I created a website, which I'll share in the show notes because I think it's really useful. It's just some basic information about PDA, autism, and because here's where I landed, right? I was heartbroken along with this missed messages about these missed meetings. I got an IEP draft for our meeting next week, and it was also I was just heartbroken. There were just things added in there and things taken away. I sat there with a lawyer and advocated passionately. And this whole new team this year had just wiped everything clean and put just a regular, average, ableist, troublesome, not at all centered around my child's individual needs, making wild assumptions about his needs, by the way, and placing him in services for things he excels in, and not at all meeting us where we are, even being able to communicate with us in a meaningful way within 3 weeks. Like, it really sat poorly with me that somebody was going to write a whole ass IEP for my child without enough knowledge about autistic people to go, hey, I'm working with an autistic kid. And what do we all know? There's usually an autistic parent that doesn't realize they are so attached to that autistic kid, right? Because it runs in families. We know our traits are found in our parents. And so it really let me know who I was working with and what their idea of accommodations were, and what their natural inclinations were. So I'm also working from this place where I think people who are highly polytropic are also sort of unable to place themselves in a monotropic mindset. And they're not asked to, since the culture is made for them and they're rewarded for their traits. And so it's this, the double empathy theory. Uh, that's the gist of the double empathy theory. And I will also link Milton's double empathy theory. We'll talk about it more, but the gist of it is that we really can't put ourselves in each other's shoes, even though we think we can. And just because the culture lends itself to polytropic or out outwardly driven, able to carry on several different realities or conversations or trains of thought at once, and happy and adept at doing that personalities, then the inclination is just towards bigotry when we talk about mental illness or developmental disabilities. So we'll touch on this again. This is not what this diary is about, but I think I'm just being very compassionate and empathetic. That being said, I'm being self compassionate, and I have done heartbreaking emotional labor that has completely gone unvalued by the company. Period. It's not about the teacher, it's not about the department, it's not even about the system. I'm getting a message. If I just look neutrally at this, take away my feelings about it, I'm getting a message. My needs can't be met. My pain points have been. I've had pain points for the last year with this company and some changes they've made internally. While I've gotten a lot of really good management around that and people make me feel like they're listening, nothing I say to these humans makes it into the records. And so what I'm hearing and what's happening on the record are two different things. The start of the school year is when I have the least spoons available to communicate with new people and to screen them for my son's nervous system, because I am regulating his around extreme anxiety and not wanting to engage with the material. I'm not getting any alleviation around his anxiety engaging with the material, and I'm not getting any meaningful changes around things I suggest to the staff, which means they can't. Either they don't have the spoons to because they're overworked, or they can't within their company's structure. And the labor falls back on me to keep trying to enforce a boundary that is continually trampled on. I would have to be stupid to keep engaging with this system and this company and pouring energy into this. So right now I'm sort of dumbfounded by all this and still legally obligated to trudge through this material with my son, at least until we sort, something out. Maybe I want to, we'll see what's going on. I realize this all at once, sort of with horror, right? That it's not this person's fault. And they probably don't have the spoons to listen to me and absorb what I have to say. So I started making web pages, right? So I made the PDA web page, and then I made a web page to answer to the IEP. I kept getting phone calls, and I keep getting phone calls. I can't answer them. I'm really hella busy. I really, literally can't. And finally, his teacher used my scheduling link. So in week 4's diary, we'll get to feedback from how that meeting went. And again, I'm trying to just deal with this really logically and deal with the reality that coulda, woulda, shoulda notes are not in the file, and this IEP is a really poor fit, and everything I've advocated for has been wiped clean, and I have to start fresh. And so I'll probably have another website or two by the time the meeting comes up. Anyway, we're feeling better. My kiddo is up during the day. Next week is his birthday. have a little bit of momentum going. Like, it's not much, but we're doing like 3 lessons a day. And I let him pull back from the lessons he really hates. We started doing subjects he likes. So, and they exist. He likes science. He likes social studies. We used to like ELA before they changed the program and made it really tedious. So it really is these changes kind of heartbreaking because it used to work and now it doesn't. But it's okay. I've advocated for a full year. The school has not moved or offered any meaningful support. I have done everything I can, and I have to just accept reality and sit with it and look at the next week and see how much material we're getting through, what we can provide as far as feedback. Calmly attend that IEP meeting in a really centered place, knowing that I'm not emotionally attached to this, and it is what it is. They are going to offer what they can, and it's my boundary to set. Ultimately, it's not their fault, and it's not their job to decide whether or not the system can work for my son. So, yeah, for the rest of the week, I'm just focusing on my well-being, exercising, taking care of my nervous system to ensure that I can ground for him and I can deal with his ups and downs as he gets through material, which is finally happening. So let's move on. His passion died a lot this week for the Collins Institute material, and we're still not in the software because we're 40 lessons behind in public school. But we still have some cool stuff to look at, so let's take a look. We're learning how to plan a food brand. 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 We're serving takoyaki, and sandwiches made on fresh-baked Japanese milk bread. We're working on menu planning, kitchen skills, food safety, and food cost. Okay, so this week, a science project flew in. His name was Rocky Balboa. We looked up what kind of praying mantis he could be. We looked up what he might be able to eat. We got him some mealworms and offered him some water. He stayed for 2 days. And then he left. We didn't do any bread. We were not together a lot. He was trying to be nocturnal and avoid me most of the time, but we did grow a batch of mostly broccoli sprouts on the countertop. So again, we are looking at producing some of the more expensive ingredients for our food project in-house. He perfected his vegetable soup recipe, and we put together our new trampoline, which was our gym class, when our dog allowed us to use it. All the animals like to sleep on a trampoline. I have no idea why. So that was our week. It was pretty chill because I was being avoided most of the week. And we'll get back into the kitchen next week. I'm concerned, although I'm trying not to be, about the pace. I'd like to get him started on the Collins software, but I realize these are just deadlines I set for myself, and they're arbitrary. You gotta let them go. So let's see how it scores. phase because we're problem solving and recipe developing. So every time we do something, we talk about the results, and then we tweak something. We talk about what our goal is, and then we make the recipe we develop, and we keep going until we get the results we're looking for. So we did that, and I'm including learning for my child and for many of us PBAers is not something outside of living. We're always learning, we're curious, we're sponges for information if we're interested in it. So to track his PDA learning really is beyond the restaurant project. A praying mantis flew in our house, and like a PDA, we learned about our new visitor, and we collaborated about what would work for him, what we should do, like what our responsibility was, if he was injured, if we should bring him outside, if we should let him stay. And there was research and checking with experts and discussing that. He continued to develop his soup recipes, his vegetable soup, and we talked about problem solving. Our soup is too salty, so we learned a skill there to save a recipe, and a lot of better collaboration, open, asking for advice instead of resenting being taught something. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm trying to solve this problem in my head. Like, the soup was a good example. I didn't say that. He came to me, I want to save my soup. Mom, save my soup. So we talked about it. And then we talked about surface area too, because Mom is always infoed on things. And so I added Gestalt lessons in the moment about why cutting the potato a certain way would speed up the process. And that included a lesson on surface area, which bridges math and science. And so we had a pretty good week in spite of him being so dysregulated by the rest of what's going on. Looking forward to starting. I'm really anxious to start the software and look at it because I'm the nerd. But it's important to keep him trusting me and understanding and honoring his nervous system and where he is right now. Because that's at the core of the independent learning project. So I just have to learn how to breathe through it. That's all. Once again, there's nothing to share. It's one. What's happening is the material itself is so frustrating. It's triggering. And when your threat response is triggered, you really can't engage the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain that processes reasoning and sort of makes us human, right? I feel like it's kind of the conductor of the brain, and it takes all of the signals and it balances it like a sound guy EQs the room, and it produces, a finished product that's harmonious. When you have too many threat chemicals in the system, the conductor is cut off in favor of efficiency. So if the system lacks energy for any reason, or if it's flooded with cortisol, then you might see a breakdown in what psychologists call executive functioning, this conductor. Yeah? And